Hey everyone, this is Pallavi and I'm back with the 31st game of the book called Logical Chess Move by Move by Irving Chernev. This game was played between Havasi and Capablanca in Budapest in 1929. The opening played in this game was Nimzo-Indian defense. So let's start. So white started with d4, planting a pawn right in the middle of the board to get control of the center. And it's also making way for the bishop and queen to come out, and moreover the queen is supporting the d4 pawn. And now black played knight to f6. Black develops a piece and bears down on the center instead of occupying it with a pawn. His knight attacks the d5 and e4 square and prevents white from gaining more control by playing e4. Now white played c4. This advance is a valuable free move in queen's pawn openings. It attacks the central square d5, makes the c file a favorable one for the rook, likely when the file opens up, and offers the queen access to the queen side. Now black played e6. With this move, black prepares a pawn support for a later occupation of the center by d5. Meanwhile, he releases a bishop, the f8 bishop, but not at once d5. If black plays d5 instead of knight f6, c takes d5, queen takes d5, knight c3, gains time for white by attack on the queen. And if instead of c takes d5, black plays knight takes d5, then e4, attacking the knight and also controlling the center, knight f6, and then knight c3, leading white to have more control of the center. So black played e6 and then white played knight c3. This is sharper than developing the g1 knight. It backs up a threat of e4, presenting a formidable array of pawns in the center. Black played bishop to b4, pinning the knight on c3, hence depriving it of the power to attack or defend. Thus, if white carelessly played e4, then black can grab the pawn at once with his f6 knight. So white played queen to c2 with a number of objects in view. First of all, the square c2 is generally the queen's most useful post in this opening. The queen guards the knight. And in the event of black playing bishop takes c3 check, the queen may recapture and leave white's pawn structure undisturbed. Then the queen exerts pressure on the c file, the advantage of which becomes manifest with the opening of the file. And then the queen, by controlling e4, renews the white's threat of advancing the e4 pawn push. So after queen c2, black played d5, snatching control of e4 from white and restraining his ambitious e-pawn from moving to e4. And then white played knight f3, a quiet move, perhaps too quiet. It gets a king's knight off the back rank, but the quietness gives black an opportunity to seize the initiative. So now black played c5, a good move. Black aims to destroy white's pawn center, or at the very least to maintain a state of tension in that area, important area. As a fringe benefit, his queenside pieces have a bit more elbow room. Now, white played c takes d5. White's idea is to clarify the position in the center. The disappearance of his c4 pawn also helps to increase the pressure on of the queen on the c file. Black played queen takes d5, preferable to e takes d5, which allows bishop to g5, an annoying pin on the f6 knight. The queen on d5 after queen takes d5 is strongly centralized and in no danger of being annoyed by white's minor pieces. After queen takes d5, white played a3, attacking the troublesome bishop. Black played bishop takes c3 check. Black must exchange. If instead Had black played bishop to a5, then b4, threatening knight takes d5. Also the bishop here. Then c takes b4, knight takes d5, b3 discovered check, bishop to d2, b takes c2, knight takes f6 check, g takes f6, bishop takes a5, and white has won a piece. So after bishop cross c3 check, bishop takes c3, white played b takes c3. In compensation for white's theoretical advantage of the two bishops against knight and bishop, black's position on the queen side is distinctly superior. Capturing with the queen instead let black gain a tempo by knight e4, attacking the queen, whereupon the prospect of white's playing e4 seems further away than ever. So after b takes e3, black played knight c6. The knight develops with a threat. There is now a triple attack on white's d pawn, and this limits his choice of reply. So after knight c6, now white played e3, the least of the evils. Though it does shut in the c1 bishop, the alternative d takes e5, queen takes e5 saddles white with two isolated pawns on a3 and c3. While after c4, black can play knight takes d4, queen a4 check, queen d7, and now black is a pawn. And instead of queen f4 check, if white plays c takes d5, then knight takes c2 check, king d1, knight takes e1, black wins a rook. So white played e3, the list of the evils. Okay, so now black played short castle. The king finds a safer shelter while the rook on h8 makes its appearance. Bishop to e2. The bishop develops cautiously a more energetic procedure, c4, to dislodge the queen from the center, followed by bishop to b2, with fair chances for white. Now after bishop e2, black played c takes d4. This clever pawn exchange keeps the position fluid and gives black a slight advantage after any recapture. White played c takes d4. White adheres to the principle of capturing towards the center and increases the queen's sphere of action by opening the c file. However, it might have been better policy to play e takes d4, activating his dark squared bishop. Understandably, white rejects knight takes d4 as queen takes g2, bishop to f3, knight takes d4, and black is winning. So after c takes d4, now black played b6, preparing to develop the bishop at b7, and where it will command one of the longest diagonals on the board, which is this one. Now black's advantage consists mainly in his two pawns to one on the queen side. So there are two pawns versus one pawn. And this, after an exchange of pawns, can turn into one pawn against one. As for the c file, it can be seized by the a8 rook. The rook will drive white's queen off and remain in control of the file. So after b6, now white played knight to d2. White wants the long diagonal for himself. So he vacates f3 for the bishop. He hardly hopes to lure Capablanca into a trap by queen takes g2. If queen takes g2, then bishop takes f3 and white wins a piece by double attack with the support of the knight on d2. Black played bishop to b7. The bishop stands beautifully here despite the fact that two pieces obstructs its path. Meanwhile, the c8 square is ready for occupancy by black's rook. White played bishop to f3. The bishop is well posted here, but at what a cost in time. The knight has had to retreat and development of white's queenside pieces has been neglected. Black played queen d7. The queen keeps in touch with the knight, which is under attack by two pieces. White played castle. Trying to get in the advance of the e-pawn is premature. If white plays e4, then knight takes d4, cost a pawn. While bishop takes e6, e4, queen takes d4, queen takes c6, and queen takes a1, loses the exchange. So white instead castled. Now black played rook to c8, rook a c8. Black threatens knight takes d4 and thereby suggests that white's queen leave the c file because there will be a discovered attack. So after rook a c8, white played queen b1. The aggressive queen a4 is risky as knight e5. It's a discovered attack on the queen by the black queen. Queen takes d7, knight takes f3 check, knight takes f3, and then knight takes d7. And after, instead of queen takes d7, if white plays queen takes a7, then knight takes f3 check, knight takes f3, queen c6, and followed by rook a8 puts the queen in trouble. So queen b1, and then black played knight a5, a good move, offering an exchange of bishops. Refusing it leaves black in full possession of the long diagonal. White played bishop takes b7. It might have been safer to concede the diagonal by bishop e2 and keep more pieces on the board. Exchanging simplifies the position and accentuates black's superiority. So after bishop takes b7, black captured with the queen. Now black is now ready to exploit the circumstance that his opponent's light squares are vulnerable to invasion. These squares have been weakened by the disappearance of the light squared bishop. This advantage, together with that of black's pawn majority on the queen side, a circumstance which generally results in the creation of a passed pawn, should be enough to forecast a win for him. Bishop b2. Finally, white gets his queen side rolling. Praiseworthy as this object is, it was essential to anticipate black's next move and queen d3. This would strengthen white's weak squares and hold off for a time the threatened invasion. So after bishop b2, now black played queen a6. Had white played queen to d3 before, white would have controlled the a6 square. So after queen to a6, a very fine maneuver. The queen takes leave of the long diagonal to exert great pressure on a more important one. The queen threatens to come in strongly at e2 and make coordination by white's pieces difficult. Rook e1, stopping black's queen e2 move. If rook c1 instead to put up a fight for the c file, then black plays queen e2, knight f3, knight b3. It's a double attack. Rook takes c8, rook takes c8, rook a2 saving the a1 rook, and then rook c1 check. White must give up his queen or be checkmated by bishop takes c1, queen d1 check, knight e1, and queen takes c1. It's a checkmate. So white instead of rook c1 played rook e1, stopping the e2, queen e2 move. Now black played knight d5, a temporary centralization of the knight. It's on its way to the queen side for all the actions. Rook a2, intending either to oppose rooks by bishop a1 followed by rook c2 or to continue with queen a1 preventing knight c3. Rook c6, black played rook c6 after rook a2, planning to double up the rooks on the c file and is in no hurry to play knight c3. As first, he wants to induce white to dislodge the black's knight from the center. e4. A deceptive move. It looks strong, but the central pawns are exposed and can easily become targets of an attack. Knight c3. Good move. It may seem strange that black gives up a healthy knight for a sickly bishop, but this precaution is necessary before the rooks venture into enemy territory. With less material on the board, the rooks will be less exposed to the stings of the minor pieces. Bishop takes c3. White had to capture the knight as it was attacking the queen and the rook. Rook takes c3. The recapture enables the rook to penetrate deeper into white's position. Knight f3. White makes an effort to regroup his pieces. He tries to dispute the c file by rook c1, rook takes c1, queen takes c1, queen d3, queen b2, rook d8 wins a central pawn. So instead, white played knight to f3. Now black played rook fc8. The doubled rooks now dominate the open file. h3 making way for the king to escape. Knight c4. Now there is a triple attack on the a pawn. a4. Only move that saves the pawn. Knight a3. The knight attacks the queen simultaneously, cuts off a pawn's protection by the a2 rook, which is under attack by the queen right now. White played queen b2, voluntarily giving up a pawn which he cannot keep. If he tries to hold on to the pawn by playing queen to d1, then queen c4, attacking the rook, rook b2, then knight c2, attacking the other rook, rook e2, queen takes a4, knight e1, putting pressure on the pinned knight, and then queen takes d4 wins for black. So after knight a3, white played queen to b2. Then black played queen takes a4, the first tangible gain. Now watch the greatest genius the game of chess ever produced demonstrate the art of transforming a passed pawn into a queen. Rook e2. White is running out of good moves. He rejects queen e2. As a reply, rook c2 leads to further exchanges. An attack by the pinned knight by rook ea1 is cleverly met by queen b5, quickly saving the knight from danger. Rook e2, then black played pawn to b5. Passed pawn must be pushed. Another golden rule. Now, white played d5. White opened lines for some counterattack, trying to create a diversion. E takes d5, the simplest response, as the recapture will give white an isolated pawn in the middle of the board. E takes d5. In return for this, white's e2 rook looks out on a completely open file. In fact, white threatens queen takes c3. Queen takes c3. If black captures, rook takes c3, then rook e8, it's a checkmate. So after e takes d5, now black played b4. It's a good move. With this brilliant move, black accomplishes a number of things, such as it nullifies white's threat. The e8 square is now being covered by the queen. It defends the knight, freeing the queen from that duty. It advances the pawn one step nearer its ultimate goal, the 8th rank. So after b4, now white played queen to b2, not only to support his own passed pawn, but to bring the queen into active play. b3, pushing the pawn further into its goal. Now rook b2. The rook holds out. This holds out longer than rook a1 because of rook c2, queen e3, and then b2 when black wins more quickly. So after rook b2, black played rook c2 attacking the blockader, which must be removed. Queen e3. White hopes to complicate matters as capturing the rook instead is not that attractive. Rook takes b2, the proper rook to capture. This begins a series of pretty moves that decides the game. Rook takes b2. And then black played knight to c4, threatening to win an exchange. Queen c1. White rescues the rook by pinning the knight, which would not do to play queen takes b3. So instead, queen takes b3. Black simply takes the rook with the knight, and his knight protects the queen. Even after queen takes b2, black is ahead in exchange. So instead, white played queen c1, pinning the knight, and now black played another good move. Queen to a3. The pin of the knight is met by a counter pin of the rook, which black now threatens to take with his queen. And then white played rook to b1. The rook wriggles out of the pin. Then black played queen takes c1 check and white resigned. Why? Because if after this white continues with rook takes c1, then b2 attacking the rook, rook to b1, and then rook to b8, supporting the b2 pawn. Let's say white plays king f1, and then black can play knight a3, driving off the last blockader. And when the rook moves away, black can promote the pawn into a queen. So this was the game between Havasi and Capablanca. So from this game, we learned a few more principles. Let's look at that. So the principles learned from this game are occupy the center with pawns, rapid piece development towards the center, castle as early as possible, try to keep your pieces on board to control more squares when your opponent has more initiative. Place your rooks on open files. Double up your rooks on an open file whenever you can. Passed pawns must be pushed. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please hit the like button and comment, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.